John Calipari, who's the bigger baby? Was it the kid who was just on the screen, which was me, Dave, with a full head of red hair? Or was it John Calipari, who just up and decided, I've had enough of this silly old, I don't know, obligations that come with being a basketball coach. You can take this press conference and you can shove it right up your rear. So he didn't show up for the press conference. Caleb.
Post-game radio interview. It was the post-game radio interview he didn't show up for.
Yeah, that's pathetic. That's pathetic. That is, first of all, you're talking to your own school on the home radio thing. So it's not like they're going to come out and pound you with fastballs high and in. I mean, these are going to be very hittable pitches. He sent his assistant coach to go out there. Listen, you do that sometimes when you're playing Missouri State Southwest, north by southeast, 32nd longitude in December. You can send your assistant coaches out there to get a little bit more work in front of the mic. You don't do that after you just lost by double digits to Tennessee at home. That's pathetic.
That's next level pathetic. You're right. And it's also, isn't it usually a sign that things are, look, I know you say beware winning the press conference. I get that. But I also say coaches who wilt beneath the pressure of the media, beware that they're almost done too. And I have mountains of evidence for that. I have evidence from Derek Dooley's mom defending him publicly on radio stations. You kind of knew that hire wasn't going to last when that happened. Remember that?
She baited me. Did I ever tell you she baited me? I was interviewing a kid, Eddie Goldman, who now is in the NFL, and it was in D.C., and they had me and another reporter on just to ask us about Tennessee, and then she jumped in on the radio interview and started ripping me. And I didn't even know she was
really.
I didn't even know she was on the show, and they tried to play it off like it was just an accident. I don't want to get sidetracked. Continue your point.
Yeah, Derek Butch Jones, Shy Tuttle fell on a helmet. Okay, or champions of life, lecturing the media. The minute he lectured the media, you knew he was done, right, Dave? In that moment, you're like, this guy's not going to last the year. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to give you guys an underrated one. Josh Dobbs' breakout game, 2014. Tennessee's down 42-28. Do you remember this game, Dave, at South Carolina? They come back, score 2 touchdowns in 3 minutes, and then win in overtime.
Yeah.
What did Steve Spurrier do in the press conference? I don't know if you remember. He gave a quick statement, talked about how tough this loss was, and he's like, I'm tired of losing games like this, and I don't need to answer any questions from y'all, so I'll see you later. And he just walked off. And then he resigned a year later.
So are you telling me that John Calipari is dead man walking?
I think so. I mean, Nick Saban, as much of a jerk as he was to the media, he never shied away from a press conference, did he? Ever. He never shied away from his obligations. You covered Fulmer. Whatever you might think about Fulmer, he always stood in front of the podium and took his licks, didn't he? When things got really bad?
Yes, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basic professionalism to stand up and take your licks and be honest with the media. And this was a meltdown move by John Calipari. And this was a sign that things are unraveling. I don't know if he's going to get fired, or I don't know if he's just so sick of everything that's happening at college basketball he's going to retire. But this is like the first.
I actually don't think you're implying that it was an impetuous response, right? That I was mad. I'm out of here. You go handle it.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it was an orchestrated response, and you'll see other things happen in the coming weeks where he wants his buyout. I mean, that's what he wants. So
doesn't he have a lifetime contract?
Yeah, but he's going to get as much as he can, and I think he's ready to be done. I think the expectations at Kentucky are incredibly high, and they're not okay with producing a bunch of rich NBA players. They want more than one title, which is what he has. And I think he's setting up. Listen, he did this to himself at the Nets. I had him on the radio shortly after he got fired by the Nets, and I said, well, what happened in that whole New Jersey situation? And he said, well, that didn't work out. They paid me $4 million, and I left. He doesn't care. He doesn't bleed blue. I mean, he would walk away with a bunch of cash and be just fine. Maybe he coaches a lower level or not. I don't know. But to me, he's going to make
fact, I'll tell you. And I remember because just for guys, full disclosure, when I was a young kid, when I was 10 to like 15, my grandfather had season tickets to Memphis Tiger basketball games. So like we would always go. So I followed Memphis from the Larry Finch to the John Calipari years. And when John Calipari got hired at Memphis, you probably remember this, Dave, between the Nets and the Tigers, he took an assistant job for the Sixers under Larry Brown for a year. Remember that?
I do.
And he did. You don't think he had some college offers? Of course he did. Calipari is very smart in this way. Calipari doesn't take a job that he thinks is going to be too difficult to recruit. He took the Memphis job because, as you know, Memphis has a lot of in-city talent, so it's very easy to recruit in Memphis. But he said, until I can get a job where I can recruit in the city like that, I'll take a job as an assistant for a year, develop some connections. Maybe I can use that. He's very meticulous, isn't he? So I think I'm on your side.
Yeah, and I'm with Smoky Mountain Red. I think Cal still has a few years in the tank, but he is over Kentucky. That's what I think exactly. If you want to compare it to football, Michigan asked John Harbaugh to take a pay cut, and he did. Okay, but what happened the minute he got that first NFL job? Deuces, I'm out. Y'all get to step in. I don't care if you're my school or not. You're the one that made me take the pay cut. Well, what happened? Was it last year or maybe the year before that you had people showing up fire Calipari signs? You don't think John Calipari knows that? You don't think he knows that's out there? You don't think he feels underappreciated? Of course he does. I mean, we could argue whether or not his tenure has been a failure with just one championship at Kentucky. By Kentucky standards, I would say yes. By almost any other program in the nation, I would say no. If we want to argue that, that's fine. But at the end of the day, John Calipari is looking out for John Calipari. And if he's stressed at night because the fans won't get off of him and they won't get off his kids at school, and that's the way Kentucky is. You talk about a one-team state, that's a one-team state. Louisville can say all they want to, but that's a one-team state. And I think he skipped that press conference. I think we might not hear about it because we don't cover Kentucky closely, but I think there will be other things. They may be behind the scenes where he'll just kind of lay the groundwork for, maybe we should go our separate ways. I think this is it.
And there's cultural fits. And let's point this out. When you're winning, cultural fits don't matter. Like, that's why I say people are like, Brian Kelly's not a cultural fit for Louisiana. So what? If Brian Kelly's winning, he's not going to care. But if things go a little south, you know this, Dave, there's two types of coaches. Like, Bruce Pearl's a Northeastern guy, but you can tell he's totally embraced living in the South now. You know what I mean? Yes. He's like that type of guy. I think that actually is something that worked against Lane Kiffin. He may be more comfortable now, but you can tell he wasn't that comfortable in the South when he got hired by Tennessee. Is that fair to say? He wasn't that comfortable in the Southern culture.
Wasn't that comfortable in the South? I mean, no, he was not. That's the most massive understatement in the history of the world. That'd be like Dave was a little uncomfortable at that Taliban meeting.
So the reason I say that is because Calipari's a Jersey boy through and through. He's more comfortable in Northeastern environments or urban areas. Is that fair to say? And if all things being equal, he's a little more comfortable in those type of situations.
Yes.
Lexington's a small town, college vibe in the South.
We knew that from the get, but he
was winning, so it was okay when he was winning.
Right. But we knew that from the get. He's not a talented enough X's and O's coach to produce more than one championship with over a dozen NBA players. Sorry, that's a problem. At some point, we can always say, oh, I think he gets too hard of a knock because they just want to say he's just a recruiter, not an X's and O's coach. No, he's not a good X's and O's coach. Harrell Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization. Are your kids safe at school? Call their school administrator. Make sure with Harrell Group Security Solutions is your work safe space. Harrell Group Security Solutions, highly trained individuals that will take care of you. Harrell Group Security Solutions, harrellgrp.com, harrellgrp.com. So going back to our poll, if you haven't had a chance to vote on that, a mega conference is what? Awesome, 28%. Still ball, 57%. Into the sport, 15%. Well, that's good news because when the mega conference happens, we'll still have 85% of our listeners.
There you go.
15, I'm out.
Okay, so
I was not at a Taliban meeting.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up.
I did have a funny joke. So we moved. I thought this was funny. My wife looked at me like I was an imbecile. But we had a couple. Our other house was darkish. It was like a cabin. So the one we moved in is really bright and open. We found that some of our towels were discolored. So I said, you and your friend you need to get together on Monday, throw all the towels away, and just go buy brand new towels. So Taliban together.
Oh my gosh.
It's not
Oh my
bad.
gosh.
It's not. Is it
bad.
awful?
Not
pretty
bad. A little
Pretty
bit.
awful.
So I actually wanted to discuss a little bit of the Calipari situation. I thought about this recently because Lamont Paris, you know where Lamont Paris came from, right? The South Carolina coach, and who they beat Kentucky, by the way.
Yeah,
He's from the
came
Bo
from
Ryan. Well, he came from Chattanooga, but he was a Bo Ryan assistant at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And so Calipari, I actually would have disagreed with you 10 years ago about his X's and O's because I actually thought Calipari it's really hard to get freshmen to play together. And I thought the method of relying on one and done wasn't a reliable method. But here's where I agree with you. It was the year where he got all the 5 stars. And remember where they all came back for a second year? And that was the only time they all came back and didn't go to the NBA. And in my mind, I'm like, you have a rare thing now. You have a second straight #1 recruiting class, and this other one, they all came back. You'd better win it all. Remember, they go undefeated the whole year. Then they go to the Final Four and lose to Wisconsin. I think Lamont Paris was part of this. What was Lamont Paris and Bo Ryan's plan? Do you remember?
Do I remember their plans?
Their game plan was this. It was if we keep it an inside, keep the game in the post. Kentucky had Karl Anthony Towns, by the way. Probably the best NBA player they ever had under Calipari was Karl Anthony Towns. And I think he's better than Anthony Davis. But they kept him under the basket. They kept Frank Kaminsky under the basket with Karl Anthony Towns. And they said this, if we keep it patient and play our inside game and don't deviate from it, at some point we'll get a lead. And they said, when we get a lead, Calipari gets impatient and he lets his guards start jacking up threes. And that's exactly what happened. Same thing North Carolina did to Tennessee when Jerry Green was coach. Remember when Tennessee, out of desperation, started jacking up every three in the book in that Sweet 16 game, Dave, when they came back?
Do.
And that is a product. When you start jacking up threes because you get behind, that's the biggest sign of bad coaching. Because a good coach like Calipari would have said, hey, let's keep feeding Karl Anthony Towns. Frank Kaminsky can't handle him. And he panicked and let the Harrison twins just try to shoot their way out of the slump. And
you have to pick one. John Calipari is not the head coach at Kentucky next year, or Tennessee basketball makes the Final Four.
What's better for Tennessee basketball?
No, what is more likely to happen?
John Calipari is not the head coach next year. I think that's more likely.
I will take Tennessee making the Final Four because I could see him stringing them along. I don't think he cares to be miserable. So if he needs to be miserable to get a little bit more money in his contract, he would do that for another year. But I don't know him personally.